All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We are live. Welcome to the NAACP Des Moines School Board Candidate Forums. Thank you to everyone who is joining us via Zoom and on Facebook. My name is Victoria Henderson-Weber. I am president of the Des Moines branch of the NAACP. As you all know, we believe that to thrive in the Des Moines Metro, each citizen must enjoy a quality of life that includes access to culturally inclusive and globally competitive education, and the full right to vote for representatives that advance these causes. One way for us to ensure that happens is to have conversation with and question our school board candidates. Tonight's candidates forum will be led by past NAACP Des Moines branch president and current vice president, Kameron Middlebrooks. Cam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam President. I really truly want to thank you and appreciate you and your administration for the continued support you guys have of this community. Not only do you put that work in behind the scenes, but the vision that you set forth for this branch, but truly living, working, and thriving in Des Moines has been exceptional. But tonight, the spotlight is on education. Education is one of the 5 game-changing areas the NAACP adopted as in a strategic plan several years ago. We truly believe in having a free, high quality, and public education for all. The NAACP works to ensure that every disadvantaged student and student of color graduates ready for college or career by ensuring access to great teaching, fair discipline, and equitable resources and challenging curriculum. One way that we do that and try to exceed in that mission is by offering opportunities like we're going to offer tonight with the school board forum featuring some very dynamic candidates for school board in the city of Des Moines. Just so everyone knows, the way tonight is going to work, we're going to allow each candidate an opening statement for 90 seconds. And then we have a few preset questions that we'll go through with these candidates and then allow them to close out with the 90-second closing statement. After the open forum, we're actually going to do breakout rooms for those that are joining us on Zoom. And Victoria, if you could also please put the Zoom invite in to the Facebook page as well, because for the last 30 minutes of this evening, we're actually going to do breakout rooms so you can speak directly to the candidates of your choice to ask those questions that may not have been asked from tonight. But we want to offer as much time for this Q&A that we have with our preset questions, so we're going to get the ball rolling. Our first candidate that I would like to introduce is an incumbent representing District 4, Mrs. Terry Caldwell-Johnson. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Cam, and I really appreciate you, Ebony and Victoria, for the time that you've spent in coordinating today's forum, and special appreciation to the Des Moines branch of the NAACP for always stepping up in our community and leading. As you've indicated, Cam, I'm Terry Caldwell-Johnson, incumbent running for the District 4 seat on the Des Moines School Board. And one of the things I want to lift up is just what the boundaries of the District 4 district are. We really are the Lincoln feeder pattern. And so within our district, we have about 52,000 residents, approximately 9,000 students. And in District 4, we have 11 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 1 high school, Lincoln High School. So that really sort of puts into context what District 4 is and who I represent in this race. As you've indicated, I'm an incumbent. I'm actually running for my 5th and final, and I say that out loud, term on the Des Moines School Board. I'm thrilled not only to serve the residents of the 4th District, but there are so many things ahead of us that I want to continue, and representing the district will allow me to do that, as well as serving with the rest of the individuals who are elected. So thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the questions that you have for us this evening. Thanks again.
Thank you, Terry. Next up, representing District 2, Mrs. Jenna Knox.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Des Moines branch of the NAACP for having me, and thank you to Cam and Victoria and Ebony for putting this together. And Terry broke my heart. Last term, huh? But I am running for District 2. I'm running unopposed. My primary area of representation is North High School. I do have a little bit of Hoover and a little bit of Roosevelt as well in there. But primarily North High School is the area that I am running to represent, which is appropriate because it is in my backyard. My husband and I have lived at the corner of 6th and Hickman for 13 years now. I have 2 daughters that are in the district, and I'm a proud 4th generation Des Moines Public School graduate. So I believe in the power of Des Moines Public Schools, and I'm really eager to get involved and really make our district a place of choice, not only for our families and our students, but also our professionals that work in the district.
Thank you, Jenna. And to Jenna and Terry, I know you both are running unopposed, but we truly appreciate you both still being here tonight so our community can still hear your perspectives. But the next few people that we have up, there is going to be a little bit of competition. So we're eager to hear the perspectives of these next groups. First, we'll move into District 1. The first candidate we will introduce is Shelley Skuster.
Hi there, thanks for having me. My name is Shelley Skuster. I'm running for Des Moines Public School Board in District 1 because I know what it feels like to not be heard. I believe we need leaders who will listen to the constituents they represent rather than partisan politics at the State House. I have 4 amazing kids all enrolled in DMPS. They are my motivation for everything I do. Last year, I learned that one of my children could not read. She was in 2nd grade. And I've become very passionate about our literacy goals and believe that we need a better plan to make sure that our kids in our district learn how to read. I am looking forward to the questions that everyone has tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Next up for in District 1, Kim Martorano.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kim Martorano, and I am your District 1 school board member. And I have been serving since August of 2020 when I was appointed by the board. And it's been an absolute pleasure to serve the last year. We as a board have accomplished quite a bit in an unprecedented year, including writing brand new policies and implementation of some anti-racist policies, as well as I've participated in the Community Legislative Action Team and have advocated for additional funding from the State House. I've also become a certified student outcomes focused governance coach. I'm going to continue focusing on increasing opportunities for students to improve our student outcomes and achievement, and focusing on equitable treatment of all students, advancing those anti-racist systems that we are hoping to put forth in the next couple of meetings. And then, of course, representing the vision and the values of the community with a collaborative approach, talking with all of our stakeholders, students, families, parents, teachers, and staff alike. My expertise in data analytics, as well as improving student outcomes, has proven to be an asset to this board, and I look forward to continuing to serve. Thanks for having me tonight.
Thank you, Kim. Next, we will move on to our at-large candidates. First up will be Maria Alonzo-Diaz.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Maria Alonso, and yes, Alonzo-Diaz. I am running for one of the at-large seats. It is very nice and very thankful to be here. I have been in the community for 25 years. I've lived in Des Moines for 25 years. My children, I have 3. One just graduated from DMPS, and I have 2 others that attend Hoover High School. Public education to me has been a gift. I believe that every child has a right to that and has a right to explore and achieve success, whatever success is to them. I believe that it's our job as adults to provide that environment for them so that they can flourish. My platform is equity and quality education, health and wellness, literacy, and also parent engagement and educator support. I hope to have your support November 2nd.
Thank you, Maria. Next up will be Lloyd Elam.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for inviting me, and thank you for the work of the NAACP of representing the community and make sure that everyone is part of this thing we call the American dream. My name is Lloyd Elam, and I am running at large for the Des Moines School Board. Like most of you, I was taught the moniker that a mind is a terrible thing to waste. That is why I'm running for school board, because simply I do believe that our children are falling behind and that right now there is a real challenge in the public school. That's why I believe that we got to have smaller class sizes. We got to have a vocational system that's second to none and set real standards for our children so that when they come out of high school, they know what their skills are and they can take that to the marketplace so that they and their respective communities can prosper. Tonight, I hope to demonstrate that to you and that when we come to an end, you'll be convinced that I'm the best candidate to go forward and the two spots there for the at-large position. So I hope to have this conversation with you tonight. Thank you so very much for having me. And I look forward to all your questions.
All right, thank you, Lloyd. And last for opening introductions, we'll have Jackie Norris.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jackie Norris. I am running for one of the 2 at-large seats to represent the whole city. I'm running because I believe that a high-quality school is of critical importance to every child, regardless of their zip code. And I believe that the Des Moines Public Schools should be able to offer that to all of our children. Among other things, I've been a small business owner, the CEO of Goodwill of Central Iowa, a chief of staff for Michelle Obama, and by far my favorite job being a high school government teacher. I'm the daughter of a school nurse and a high school government teacher, and the proud parent of 3 smelly, dirty teenage boys who attend Roosevelt High School. And it would be an honor to have the opportunity to represent our children and fight for our children and advocate for our children each and every day in the Des Moines Public Schools. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jackie. We'll now get into our preset questions. As I mentioned to the candidates before, we're going to keep the same order, but we'll have different candidates start each question. So this next question we'll actually direct first to Jenna Knox. As a candidate for school board, what are your top priorities and what informed you on these decisions?
Great question. So I, like many parents, actually started paying attention to the school board during COVID, trying to figure out, are we going back to school? Are we not? What's kind of happening with the coming year? What are the plans going to be? And really, as I started tuning in almost religiously, I realized there's 30,000 kids in this district and a few hundred people watching these school board meetings each night. And also started realizing that there are quite a lot of other opportunities and challenges that this district is facing beyond just COVID, and really started getting passionate about wanting to be a part of solving those problems. So I guess my priorities would be this. Number one, we need to address the COVID learning gap that has, we need to make up for that lost time. We need to make up for the gap in education and instructional time that our students have faced these past, 18 months or, this whole entire span that we're still living in. The second thing is that we need to have more engagement with our communities. That's really one of the reasons that I, again, am running, is seeing not enough parental involvement, not enough community involvement in these decisions, especially from District 2. I really felt like as a parent, I didn't have the luxury to work at home during the pandemic. I work at Broadlawns Medical Center. I was in the hospital every day and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my kids and how I'm going to juggle it all. We need to have more of those voices at the table and hoping to be able to provide resources to our parents and our community members that need help from our district in that way, especially a lot of my families that are here, my neighbors around me that were going through the same things, and my colleagues at Broadlawns that were working the whole time. And then I think lastly, I really want to see our anti-racism work come to fruition. I've been hearing about it at all the board meetings for, these 18 months I've been tuning in. I'm eager to see some real strategic goals come around it, and eager to see all of that really roll out and be a part of those efforts. Those would be my top 3 priorities for the district.
Thank you, Jenna. Shelley, your top priorities and what informed your decision?
Well, I have 3 priorities. The first is that we need leaders who listen to all stakeholders, meaning we need leaders who are responsive to parents like me, to community members, taxpayers, teachers, staff. Everyone's voice has value, and we need to make sure that we are listening before we make decisions. My second priority is safety, making sure that we have safe schools, so that our kids and teachers and staff can be in the classroom so they can learn. To me, that means during a global pandemic, we have leaders who are willing to prioritize the safety of our children rather than partisan politics at the State House. My final priority is literacy for all. We have 50% of our first, second, and third graders in our district that know how to read. 30% of Black boys in first, second, and third grade know how to read. This is unacceptable. I have the support of many teachers, staff. We have solutions. We don't have leaders who are listening. And I vow to be a leader who listens and comes to the table with solutions.
Thank you, Shelley. Kim.
My priorities include focusing on student outcomes and improving them. We currently abide by or function under a student outcomes focused governance framework, and I've recently become a certified coach in this work, and it is a research based and proven tool to improve student outcomes, and focusing on monitoring appropriately and holding the superintendent accountable for our goals and our guardrails is really going to be the work that advances our students and gets us to achieving those goals. Next, I would like to focus on ensuring equitable treatment of all students while advancing that anti-racism work that Jenna spoke of. We have co-written and have brought draft guardrails or new policies to the table for our board to approve. Much of these are focused on our anti-racism work, and I think that it is incredibly important. I believe in honest and courageous conversations about race, and this is how we're going to improve, is really having a safe space to have those conversations. Next, I will represent the vision and the values of the entire community and make sure that I am having a collaborative dialogue with all stakeholders, students, staff, teachers, parents, all of those stakeholders, regardless of their zip code.
Thank you, Kim. Next up, starting with our at-large members, we'll move to Maria.
Thank you. As I mentioned previously, my hope is to be able to address and work on these three issues. One is equity and quality education. I believe that every child needs to be assessed. I think that it's important to realize that every child has a story, and it's important to know how their story or their experiences are affecting their learning. I hope that we are able to provide the services and support for that child to be able to be successful. My other point of interest and that I would love to address as a board member is the health and wellness literacy. So for the last 9 years, I have I co-founded and have been coordinating a community soccer program, and really with the intent of engaging families physically to stay active. And so I have seen the power that being active has, and there's a huge correlation between physical activity and academic success. I would love to support any activity that promotes overall student physical and mental health. I would obviously continue to support our mask mandate, and I would love to be able to see children and students and the district be interested in just investing in any athletic facilities that need the work in our district. I believe that our facilities need a lot of help. And my third point of interest is parent engagement and support. I believe in providing our teachers the support they need as they conduct work daily for our kids. We have to be able to also make pathways for our families to be present. We have so many communities in our Des Moines area that are represented in our school district. However, they're not present, and we have to be able to engage them. I believe that when we are able to all work together, we all win. Our kids win.
Thank you, Maria. Next up, Lloyd.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. For the last 5 years, we have been pontificated to, especially people in communities of color, that this is the greatest economic expansion we've ever seen. Yet, for some reason, too many of our kids fall behind. That is why I think that if we are to make sure that all our children have the skills necessary to compete in a global economy, we need to do three things. I think first, we need to have a vocational system that makes sure that they have the skills to come out. We can start at the 9th grade and move from there. Once they come out of high school, both real world experience and in class instruction in those vocational training programs to make sure they can go out and work. We see a lot of job openings out there, and we see very few kids of color that are actually having those opportunities. I think the second thing is we've got to reduce our class size. Class sizes are too big. Some kids don't necessarily come from two-parent households where both of their parents are educated and understand the curriculum that we're doing. I thought about this today. Today, in the current school system, what used to be when I came along was 9 months, now it's 4 months. So what I would tell you that, and then other thing is early childhood development, to work on that to make sure that our kids get started at a young age so they can do well and so they can make sure they have a good education going forward.
Thank you, Lloyd. Jackie.
Man, the list is long, but I'll keep it to three. I tried to identify things that I believe would have the greatest impact in the shorter term. There's three things. Number one, I believe that we have all called out that students of color are underperforming. And I think it's very important that school board continues to focus relentlessly with a lot of energy on making sure that there are resources and staff dedicated to achieving success with those board goals, which is specifically, focus on math and literacy. With that, we have to acknowledge that I believe we have a crisis, and it's a staff crisis. Our staff are exhausted. Our teachers, our bus drivers, our lunch line helpers, it's a lot, and we need to call that out and do everything we can to help. Because I just have 15 seconds left, the two other things that I'd say, number one, we have to ask the community for help. We're underwater, we don't have enough money, and I believe that our community will step up and help us if we ask them in strategic and thoughtful ways. And then in closing, I do support the idea of better pathways for our students, whether it be career and technical support or through facilities to make sure that they have things that they can be doing after school to stay active and fit. Thank you. Sorry, John.
Thank you, Jackie. And last on this question, we'll move to Terry.
Thanks, Cam. Well, I definitely will keep at the top of my priority list the goals that the board has established around reading and math. Those are critically important to not only our lowest performing students, but really how we create a framework for all students to rise as we move forward. But I would focus on really, quite frankly, three things: quality, accountability, and results. A strong and vibrant public school system that allows every child in every school to receive a quality education, accountability for the decisions of the school board and the superintendent with a focus on transparency, and then finally results. Understanding that every child, no matter their circumstance, is provided a first-class education that prepares them to succeed. So quality, accountability, and results. And those are the things that I think will lead us in a way that not only responds to the needs of all students, but also lifts up our entire community.
Thank you, Terry. Moving on to our second question, we'll have Shelley start this one. This one's a bit long, so I'm gonna.
You're on
You're on
mute.
mute, Kameron.
Okay. Cam, you're on mute.
We'll give Cam just another moment, and if not, I'll go ahead and ask the question.
Victoria, can you
Okay.
unmute him?
No, I can. I tried. Cam is going to leave and come back, and I'm going to go ahead and ask the next question. The next question, as Cam mentioned, is a little long, but is extremely important and timely. The question is, on Friday, DMPS asked the community to weigh in on major schedule changes to the 22-23 academic calendar. The proposed adjustments would push back the last day of school to mid to late June, but would include more days off during the year for additional holidays, extended winter and spring breaks, and an additional break in May. What do you think about this proposal?
Well, since I have 4 kids enrolled in DMPS, I received that survey and I did provide feedback on it. Some of the feedback I provided was that I appreciate the inclusive holidays because we have diverse students, and I think it's a simple way to recognize and send a message of belonging with students who have unique backgrounds and celebrations in their own families and homes. I did have some concerns about getting rid of conferences because as a mom of 4 kids, conferences come in handy to be able to know how our children are performing. But otherwise, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people in District 1 over the past couple of months, and there is a lot of concern about that summer slide. And so I'm open to hearing from constituents on what they find is a good idea and what they find is problematic. I think that's essentially the role of a board member, is to not just consider your own opinions, but listen to the people you represent. And that's what I would do.
Thank you. I apologize. I lost the order that Cam was.
I think I'm next.
Okay, go ahead, Kim.
I have talked with several parents and constituents since the survey came out, and I'm hearing mixed reviews on the new calendar and some of the changes that are being proposed. And, you know, in my opinion, we as a board and as a district really need to do more than just surveying our families and surveying our staff. We need to actually get out into the community and talk with families, talk with students, talk with parents. Oftentimes, when we survey families, we hear from the same population over and over again. So I found that in the last year, I've really had a great experience getting out into the community and talking with families that are oftentimes underrepresented and those voices that we don't hear from. So I encourage the superintendent and his leadership staff to really have additional opportunities to present voice regarding these changes to the calendar.
All right, up next, can I have Jackie answer the question, please?
Sure. It's all in how you present and package things. And I have to be honest, when I saw the email come out, the first thing I thought was, well, I wonder how the school board was actually engaged in this conversation, if they were at all. Because what that email did, for me at least, is elicit a whole bunch of questions about how my personal world might change. And that's just me wearing my hat as a parent of 3. And so I think oftentimes it's really important to think about how surveys that are sent out like that leave an impression on people. I agree. I do like the inclusivity. I do not like that there are not parent-teacher conferences. I believe it's really important that we get in front of families that are 2-parent working families to understand how this will impact their lives. And I think if this is something DMPS really wants to do, we have to sell it, and we have to talk about the research and why the research tells us that this may be important to help students achieve outcomes.
Thank you, Jackie, and sorry about that technical difficulty on my side. Thanks for the grace. We all know what happens in the Zoom world. But we'll move on to Terry to go next.
Sure, thanks, Cam. A couple of things that I would offer, and I too received a lot of feedback electronically, and actually yesterday when I was in the grocery store, a number of people just stopping me and asking me about it. I've been on this board long enough to have seen all kinds of switches and changes in the calendar and all kinds of things that have been considered when we are establishing the calendar. But what I would offer is that I think it's important for us to understand what we are attempting to address with the calendar changes and how all of those things are taken into consideration when we think about ways that we balance each of those priorities as we think about what the calendar needs to look like. I appreciate the recognition of the depth and breadth of diversity that exists in our district and how that shows up in this calendar. I also recognize the needs of some of our high poverty students that also may need to have a little more support. And so narrowing that time during the summer may help as well. But again, I go back to the premise. What are we hoping to achieve? What are we hoping to accomplish? And how do we balance each of those things as we think about what the calendar needs to look like while also engaging our communities?
Thank you, Terry. We'll now move to Jenna in District 1, and then we'll follow that up with the rest of the at-large candidates with Jenna and Lloyd. Excuse me. I'm sorry, Jenna, we'll move to Jenna next. I think we got out of order a little bit, but.
Thanks, Cam. So yes, I got the email also as a parent of kiddos in the district, and was definitely surprised. I do really appreciate the efforts to be more inclusive in our holidays, and recognition of that throughout our district. So I think that's definitely a positive. I am really concerned with losing parent-teacher conferences. As a parent of kiddos in the district, that is valuable time. I know our teachers are already stretched thin. I try to get in front of them as much as possible, but it's important that we have, if we're going to take away parent-teacher conferences, and we need to come up with some other structured ways that parents can connect with their teachers and administration more regularly. I'd like to see that increase overall beyond parent-teacher conferences. And I think my last concern is around childcare. So I'm concerned with what are we going to do to help? A lot of times people put their kids in camps at the Y in the summer, and they're finding activities. The community has activities. What are we going to do to supplement that as Des Moines Public Schools if we are going to take away a longer summer break?
All right, thank you, Jenna. We'll move to Maria, and then we'll finish up with Lloyd.
Thank you. As some of you have already, or some of the candidates have mentioned, I think it's a great way of acknowledging the presence of different communities or populations in our community. I think that when I first heard of it, I immediately thought of all the families, and I wondered, how is it really helping? Is it really helping, or are we just creating an added layer of struggle for families, for parents that don't have the ability or don't have the privilege of being able to, rearrange work schedules? So I think of, maybe families like, for example, myself, and my kids are older, they're teens, they're able to take care of themselves, but childcare for families that maybe single parents that have little children. I think Ms. Terry said something about finding a balance. How are we balancing things for families? And are we really helping, or are we just creating struggle?
Thank you, Maria. Lloyd.
Yeah, well, let me first and foremost say that anything that excludes parents from having the ability to communicate with teachers in the classroom about their children's academic well-being is a non-starter for me. I gotta be totally honest. We need more parents involved in the school system. For far too long, we have sent the school system out on an island and expected them to send us a good product back, and then then we get a chance to look at it. So I don't think that's going to work. The second thing is, I want to make sure that I do agree. I think all of our children, we're trending right now at a point where we're almost going into about 18 months or so of our children having a multitude of ways in which they've been learning. So I think a lot of our children will fall behind. And I think it's across all social demographic levels that our children are falling behind. So I think that what's important here is I do like the fact that we may extend the school year out, but I want to make sure that we're just not extending the school year out and basically where kids need more in-classroom instruction, especially if kids don't have smaller class sizes from which to operate in. I think that the unintended consequence may be that our kids lose a little bit more.
Thank you, Lloyd. For the question number 3, we're gonna get back on track, get back in order. So we'll be starting with Kim on this one. From your perspective, what are the contributing factors, what are the contributing factors to the academic disparities documented in the school district, and how can we overcome them?
Yeah, unfortunately, the data shows us that the disparities in our education outcomes for our minoritized students remain to be our students of color at DMPS. And it's painful to see that race is an indicator of student outcomes, but that is where we're at. We have to be willing to have those courageous conversations regarding race and really make it the forefront of our conversations and our monitoring processes so that we can properly address the concerns that exist. We need to be providing opportunities for all of students when it comes to our literacy and math goals. Our new policies that we put in place, I believe, are going to give us the foundation that we need to really ensure that we have teachers and leaders that look like our students and that will increase the achievement of our students that are Black and brown.
Thank you, Kim. We'll now move to Maria, followed by Lloyd.
I think Jackie indicated maybe mentioning the question again. Would you say it out loud, please?
Thanks.
Sure. So from your perspective, what are the contributing factors to the academic disparities documented in the school district, and how can they be overcome?
Wow. I think this is a long conversation, and I agree with Kim. However, I guess I go to my first point of equity and equality education. And, can we look at students? Can we acknowledge maybe the journey that each student has had? And can we look at truly the resources that they need? And I think that it's important for us to, as a district, to remember that one size doesn't fit all, and that we can have great goals. But if we don't recognize what the child is experiencing or has experienced, and if we don't create the resources, or if we don't provide the support services that child needs, I feel like we're setting them up for failure. Parent engagement, again, I speak for myself. I wish I would have, or could have been, or would have been more present a long time ago, because that has a huge impact. Had I maybe created better relationships with the teachers that were working with my children or teaching my children, to me, I think that working together, if we all can come together and really look at the needs that our children have, I think our kids can succeed in a big way.
Thank you, Maria. We'll now move to Lloyd, followed by Jackie.
Well, thank you, sir. The big issue, I think, is if you got to go back a generation, is education and economics. Those things have a profound impact on what the potential of the students going forward. I think what we can do is make sure all our students start at the right rate. So I think the most important thing we can do is start with early childhood development. We find out that if you read to a child 1 hour a day, it greatly enhances their ability to learn and develop well and usually go on well in school. I think the other thing is, and I keep beating this over the head, but I think it's so essential, that every child does not start from a perfect beginning. Some of our kids, there are disparities there. And so I think that smaller class sizes will make a huge difference if we can work on it. That should be a top priority, because every child really needs that additional instruction from their teacher. And I think the third important thing is I think we need more additional learning outside of the classroom. We've got to find a way to make sure that learning is continuous and that we don't let any of our children fall behind. And that what the unintended consequence, I think, is you get a paradigm shift in those neighborhoods. Because if children are having the opportunity to learn outside those classes and spend time, then I think we'll start to see some of the outcomes that we all want. And I think we want to see improved outcomes for all of our children. So those are the three things that I would greatly promote if I'm elected to the school board to change that.
Thank you, Lloyd. Next to Jackie, followed by Terry.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, poverty is at the root of so much of this inequity. And while the school system is not set out to address poverty, it should not be silent at all in letting the state know that they are not fully funding our kids and the resources that they need. That means that one of the things I know I will be doing on a regular basis is arguing and advocating for weighted funding for kids in poverty. That is not just a Des Moines issue, that is an urban and rural issue, number one. Number two, we have to have free all day access to pre-K for our families. These kids need more help earlier so they can focus and be successful in the classroom when they join kindergarten. I do believe it is important that we aggressively recruit teachers of color into our school system, because I think that is important that our young people see people that look like them. And then lastly, we could be doing more with out of school time programming to connect these young people to adults that they can trust and can support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. We'll now move to Terry, followed by Jenna.
Thank you, Cam. I think I'm going to probably sound a bit like a broken record, because I believe that access to early learning and preschool is probably the single greatest opportunity we have to change the trajectory for not only students of color, but all students in our district. The largest percentage of students in Des Moines public schools are minority. We also have a very large percentage of English language learners, and a 76%, nearly 77% students of poverty. We've got to deal not only with race, but we have to deal with class as we think about the challenges of all of our students. But I think that really access to early childhood and preschool will be the game changer, not only for students of color, but for every student in our district.
Thank you, Terry. Jenna, followed by Shelley.
Yeah, I agree with everything that everyone has already mentioned. Absolutely, early childhood education is critical. It should not be a privilege, it should be a right. Everyone should be able to access that as they need, not just those who can afford it. I think we definitely need to think about how are we engaging the community in this conversation. My kids spend 2.5 hours after school every night at Metro Kids. Are they involved in helping us achieve our overall district goals? How are we leaning on other resources and partners to really drive forward our outcomes? And also, what's my role as a parent? I would love to have those conversations about what can I be doing at home to help advance our overall district goals as well. And then I think lastly is definitely taking a deep dive into our hiring practices. We need more staff that are from our Des Moines areas, that know our families, that can relate to our families, that are able to represent and reflect the values that we all share to become stronger.
Thank you, Jenna. Shelley, I'll have you end up.
Yeah, a lot of great feedback from everybody. I'm a huge proponent for all day preschool because there are a lot of barriers when kids are only in preschool for a few hours. First, I think that we need Black teachers and teachers of color. Our kids need to see educators that look like them. Second, we need to seriously reconsider how we are measuring student success. To me, that means we need to look at standardized testing and realize that they're not equitable measures of student knowledge and learning. And third, it's some of the reasons I'm running. We need leaders who will listen. We need leaders who will listen to teachers. They have told me, many of them, that we have curriculum, but we don't have training. We don't have planning time. We need leaders who are going to listen to the people who are working with our children and implement those goals so that all of our students can succeed. Again, I'm a huge proponent for literacy. I believe in following the science of reading, structured literacy. It's research backed, and it is a proven way to teach kids how to read. Our teachers are telling me they just don't have the training, and there's no one listening when they are saying what they need.
Thank you, Shelley. Thanks everybody for your responses on that question. Moving into question 4, we'll start with Maria. In the absence of SROs or student resource officers, is the restorative justice initiatives that we have enough? And if not, what else needs to be done to ensure safety, the safety of our schools and our children without directing our children into the school to prison pipeline?
I love the restorative justice or the restorative option in place of SROs. I believe that we need more of what we have now. I believe that when we can address the issues that present in the school system from a broader perspective without having to criminalize youth, I think that we can get farther. Do we need to do more, or what more can we do? Can we get more people to be able to facilitate these conversations in our schools? And can we create greater efforts for students to be able to feel safe and open up and grow in the environment they're in? Because after all, that's the purpose. That's our purpose, for them to be able to develop.
Thank you, Maria. We'll now move to Lloyd, followed by Jackie.
Yes, I have gone on record saying that I would have voted to keep the SROs in school, and I tell you why. There's a lot going on in the world outside of the school system that could pose a serious threat to our children. I advocated for a win-win scenario, to mend it but don't end it, to make sure that our children are safe, and to make sure that, yes, we can do things and make sure that we have control of the school and the classroom, but we don't necessarily have to put paper on kids. In my website, I advocate for a system where any kind of disciplinary action that is imposed on a child, that should be wiped out by the end of the semester. I don't think we need to create a prison pipeline system. I think these are children. If we do a much better job of educating our children than making sure that we're all about instituting hard line discipline, then I think we'd have different outcomes. But I do believe that the SRO should be in there, but also I believe that we can create win-win scenarios and make sure that we give our kids the opportunity to understand structure, yet at the same time, we don't make sure that we create a paper trail that hurts our children. And I wouldn't go for that. So that's where I stand on it.
Thank you, Lloyd. We'll now move to Jackie, followed by Terry.
The RSO system wasn't working for all families. And so it was incumbent on the school board and the superintendent to identify alternatives. I think the restorative justice approach is a smart approach. I do know I was on the phone with one of those individuals who provides that service at East High School, and most would probably say there's not enough resources allocated just yet to be successful. And so if we're going to put our weight behind an alternative, I think we have to ensure there is and are the resources necessary. I do also think that we have to recognize that every child, every staff, every parent, every teacher, they want kids in a safe environment. We want our teachers in a safe environment. It's how kids learn. And so if we value security, if we value safety is probably a better word, then we have to continuously assess our performance. My expectation, if I were elected as a school board member, is that we would be hearing from our restorative justice coordinators regularly, monthly, to see how things are trending. And at the end of the year, assess the decision to make sure that it was felt that it was a wise decision.
Thank you, Jackie. Moving to Terry, followed by Jenna.
Thank you, Cam. Well, with regard to the SROs and whether or not the Restorative Justice Initiative is enough, I would say the jury is still out. We are very early in the school year. We are, 3.5 months in with very little data, whether qualitative or quantitative, to help us determine if what we've done is making sense and if what we intend to do with the restorative justice practices are really the way that we need to go as a district. I believe that probably halfway through the year, after the first of the year, we should be getting a monitoring report on what the data is showing us, what we are seeing at every single level, elementary, middle, and high school. I also think in competition with, or maybe in companion with, not only the work that we're doing around restorative justice, we also need to look at our student code of conduct and whether or not our student code of conduct and our discipline policies are consistent with what we've done relative to not only the elimination of SROs, but also where we are going with restorative practices. There are multiple pieces to this puzzle that have to come together in order for us to feel like we've gotten it right. I don't think we're there. I think there is much more time and attention that needs to be given to this, but at a minimum, we need to, halfway through the year, be getting some clear indication of whether or not what we have decided to do and the direction we're headed, if it's right or wrong, and if it's working for our students and our families.
Thank you, Terry. Jenna, followed by Shelley.
Completely agree with Terry. I think it's too soon to determine whether the restorative justice, which is in place in our schools right now, is enough. I'm a huge proponent for restorative justice. I think we need more of it in our greater Des Moines community in general. West Des Moines has a pretty robust program, so does some of our other suburbs. I'd love to see us doing more, so I'm proud to be a leader in that work within the district. But I think we need data and a lot more conversations to really determine what else is needed and if this is enough currently.
Thank you, Jenna. Moving from Shelley, followed by Kim.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, my first grader was assaulted in the hallway at her elementary school. I asked what the consequence was. I was told the consequence was appropriate. I said, how is it appropriate when we're not asking the victim? Interestingly enough, today I talked with a restoration facilitator contracted through Urban Dreams. He gave me some fantastic insight. We need restorative justice practices in our elementary schools. What I really want to talk about here, when we talk about the school to prison pipeline, 75% of people behind bars cannot read past a 4th grade level. We are, as a district, funneling the school to prison pipeline because we are not adequately teaching our children how to read. We are not, our goals are empty. Our teachers are telling us no one is listening. We need curriculum. We need consistent curriculum. We need proper training and proper support for teachers to implement reading curriculum well. When we have only half of our 3rd graders that know how to read, we know that by the time they hit 4th grade, if they don't know how to read, they are 4 times less likely to graduate on time, if at all. What happens to them when they can't read? We know what happens to them. We need to teach our kids how to read if we want to end the school to prison pipeline.
Thank you, Shelley. Now I'm turn it over to Kim. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I recently had a conversation with a few principals, high school principals specifically, regarding the safety at the buildings. And the information is very anecdotal. I witnessed a restorative justice circle, and based on the conversations I've had and what I've witnessed, it is the right work. But I don't have the hard data to back that up. So like Terry said, I look forward to continuing to monitor this. I believe it is the right work. I believe that we need to implement more training. Implicit bias exists, systemic racism exists, and we need to address that as well, along with the appropriate, consistent, and timely professional development for our teachers and our staff to have the strategies and the tools that they need to appropriately assist our students and appropriately be really the resources and the foundation that they need to ensure that these practices are being implemented with fidelity.
Thank you, Kim. Moving on to question 5, and we'll start with Lloyd on this. What do you believe needs to be done to increase the recruitment, retention, and promotion of faculty and staff of color in our district?
Well, I think the first and foremost thing is that we need to make it a goal. We do a very good job with hashtags and good marketing, but I think we do a very poor job of execution. So I think that's the first and foremost thing is, I said in the Des Moines Register this past week, we have to do the right thing. This is not hard, but I think also we need to set real standards. We need to follow up and set metrics up and follow this all the way through. I think we need to go all across the country, get people and use our current staff as a way to do that. I think the other thing though is that we might want to make sure that we have a structure set up so that when teachers come here, especially teachers of color from different parts of the country, that they're not set up to fail. We don't want to just put them in a system where they're struggling and then they fail. We want to make sure we put them in a system where they're thriving. That's why I've advocated for some of the initiatives that I've talked about in the campaign. So to me, the most important thing is we can set real metrics, we make it a goal, and then we need, as a board, we need to execute and really ask all the tough questions every time there's a hiring going on to make sure that, as the NFL does, to make sure that there's a person of color that's being in that interview process, okay?
Thank you, Lloyd. We'll now move to Jackie, followed by Terry.
Thanks. You know, we have amazing staff of color in Des Moines Public Schools. And one of the places I would go first and foremost is to ask all of those staff if they're interested in growing their education. And if that's of interest to them, they've chosen Des Moines Public Schools. They love us, our school environment. And so maybe we get creative and consider offering paid time off to attend college or get the certification they need to be successful. I think that's where I'd start. I do think just that, like, major companies do, we have to aggressively recruit. And that means we have to get out there and we have to sell it hard. And that has to be a goal that is given to the superintendent and that he and his team are held accountable to make sure that there's forward progress. I think the other place that I'd encourage us to think about is getting creative. We need more teachers to stay with us. We need more teachers in the future. And so could our students that are in high school potentially start as out of school time tutors and get paid for it? Are there different ways that we can think about using our students and their talents and getting them in the classroom at the elementary or middle school environment? Thanks.
Thank you, Jackie. We'll now move to Terry, followed by Jenna.
Thanks, Cam. Well, I've been around long enough to have seen a number of initiatives come and go that have to do with not only recruiting, but retaining and promoting staff of color. Right now, we have a Dream to Teach program, which is a program that really starts with our own students early, hoping to encourage their consideration and participation as teachers in our district. We have the Blue Contract, which is a great opportunity for us to not only recruit, but to hopefully retain teachers by giving them a pathway to a master's degree. And I can remember, and I think Mary Lynn Jones is on here, when we had the 3D program, which was an opportunity for us to work with Des Moines Public Schools, DMACC, and Drake to not only grow our own and to take individuals who were already in the district and give them a pathway to the teaching profession, but also hopefully to retain those folks. I'm a graduate of an HBCU. I think HBCUs are a great place to begin to identify talent that we could bring into our district. But what I would also offer is we know that fewer and fewer people are going into the education realm, which means that not only are the majority of individuals not going in, but minorities are also not going in. So we're really going to have to be creative. I know I'm over time, but I think that this is really where, if we are serious about the issue, we can really begin to hit our stride and begin to think much more strategically about bringing in staff of color, and then ways that we not only retain them, but promote them as well.
Thank you, Terry. We'll now move to Jenna, followed by Shelley.
Thank you. So I guess my first question would be, I would want to talk to our teachers, to our staff of color, and find out what is going well, what are our opportunities to grow. I would hope that there are some data around exit interviews that we maybe have on file. If not, we need to be looking at those. We need to be looking at our hiring practices and making sure that there is not any bias, and are we being as are all of those in place in order to try to overcome any barriers that individuals may have with being employed at Des Moines Public Schools. I believe what gets measured gets done. So I definitely think there needs to be a goal around our staff of color being hired and promoted, and at what levels we want to walk the walk, walk the talk at. And then I also love the pipeline. I think we need to expand the pipeline we have of teachers, potential teachers and staff members that are already students within our district. And how are we aggressively promoting that? And how are we making the most of those opportunities that exist?
Thank you, Jenna. We'll move to Shelley, followed by Kim.
I would echo a lot of what people have already said. My question is, do Black educators and people of color who are staff, do they feel welcome in our schools? Are they staying? Let's look at the exit interviews. Let's find out why they're not staying. This past summer, there was a first grade teacher with DMPS who reached out to me and said, I really want diverse bandages in our schools. This is something so simple to have multicolored bandages that for some reason we choose to have beige. It sends a message of belonging and worthiness and inclusiveness. I also think that we need to look at our hiring practices. If someone checks a box that English is their second language, let's give them an interview. Let's prioritize it. And finally, one of the reasons I'm running is because we need leaders who listen and empower our teachers. We need to let them know their voice matters at the table. When we have board members who don't listen to teachers, what's their motivation to stay?
Thank you. We'll now move to Maria to close it out on this question.
Yeah, I think I'm next.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry, the Kim, then followed by
Kim.
Maria. I apologize.
Thank you. I believe that the only way our district is going to be set up for success is if the board and the superintendent have a strong partnership in this work. We have written a guardrail that specifically addresses this. And once that guardrail is implemented and approved, we will be able to monitor it and ensure that we are addressing this just like previous initiatives. We can create and articulate a very clear system-wide policy to address attracting and retaining teachers and leaders of color. Terry mentioned the Dream to Teach program. We need to be supporting these pathways. We need to include teachers of color in our hiring processes. I would highly recommend we continue that blue contract, a comprehensive induction mentoring program that's focused solely on equity. And then of course, providing professional development and professional learning for our existing educators so that, again, they have the resources and tools that they need to properly lift up our population, our students, and just giving them again, those strategies and resources, but first and foremost, approving that guardrail so that we can monitor and put things in place that will move us forward.
Thank you, Kim. And now finally to Maria for this question.
Wow, I think that the best promoter of DMPS is reflected in the morale of staff and students. And I guess I would want to know from staff, from administrators, how they're feeling. Why are they at DMPS? What has kept them? What has worked for them and what hasn't? And are we willing to invest? Is the board or the district willing to invest in creating a more welcoming environment? And I completely believe that it's about how you make people feel that will determine whether or not people stay or go or come back. And I was recently at a school, at one of the high schools, and as a provider with a family. And it was not the best, it was not the most welcoming, place. And now if people are feeling that way, if people are feeling like they don't belong or they're not valued, the retention, we're failing, we're gonna fail. And we're gonna continue to have the same issues. So invest in the people that we have within the district and invest in those conversations with the community, but take into consideration what people are feeling right now and needing in the district.
Thank you, Maria. We're now moving on into our final question or preset question for the evening. It is another long one, so I went ahead and put that in the chat for you. But the signing of House File 802 has caused a lot of confusion regarding what is allowed to be taught in K through 12 regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. What steps should the school board take to ensure students experience an equitable and culturally responsive education? And how will you support teachers and administrators that may be targeted for ensuring they get it? And we'll start with Jackie on this.
So I was a high school government and history teacher. And so this question, it just feels outrageous because our job as teachers is to create forums for discussion and inquiry. And the way you do it is by providing primary sources and historical documents and secondary sources. And you allow our children to be curious and to ask questions. And I trust our teachers to provide a high quality education that is factually accurate. And as a board member, I believe the best thing that we can do is make sure that our teachers are trained to ensure that they are in compliance with state law, because even though we don't like it, we want to make sure that our teachers stay on the right side of the law. I would also want to make sure that our teachers know that we've got their back as school board members, that we will stay with them as they navigate this process, that we will make sure that they have the resources. But if we actually get into it and there's an issue, that we've got their back, assuming that they are teaching the way that we've encouraged them to teach, which is forums of inquiry with primary and secondary source documents. Thanks.
Thank you, Jackie. We'll move to Terry, followed by Jenna.
Thanks, Cam. I truly believe that House File H802 has become a new framing for people who are unwilling to acknowledge our country's racist history and how it impacts the present. I'm a student of history, and I believe that it cannot be erased. Discussing our shared and collective history, I think, is an important part of educating ourselves while understanding the role that systems and policies have played and how they've impacted some, but not all. I will have our teachers back no matter what. I will go to the wall on this because we cannot have a system that is considered to be educating our students without educating them about the real history of this country. Bottom line, we have to support our teachers on this. I think the legislation was intentionally vague so that they can try to catch people. But I'm telling you, we've got to support our teachers. We've got to teach history, and we've got to be clear about what that history is.
Thank you, Terry. Jenna, followed by Shelley.
I think it's critically important that our district remains pushing forward on, teaching inclusivity, celebrating diversity and equity, and making sure that, of course, what we're teaching is the real history, and of course, our moving forward in our anti-racist practices. I think it's really important that our board supports our teachers, and that our administration can provide support to our teachers as well, and helping them know where those lines are, and helping them kind of to feel like they are secure to teach what they know best, right? And to support them in that.
Thank you. We'll now move to Shelley.
Yeah, I think Terry's right. HF 802 was intentionally vaguely written by a lot of white men to scare teachers into doing their job, and or out of doing their job, I should say. The teachers I know seek truth, speak truth, and they're going to continue doing that. I have the support of a lot of teachers with my campaign because I believe in them, and I know that their intentions are to not censor the history of our country. We are doing a disservice if we do so. So yeah, vaguely written legislation, I think, just to scare teachers. They will have my support when they are teaching truth.
Thank you, Shelley. We'll now move to Kim, followed by Maria.
Thanks, Cam. I believe in honest and courageous conversations about race and how it shows up in our past and how it will inform our future. Learning about the history of race is essential. And we as a district, as a board, I believe as a board member that we should be advocating for a systemic approach to teaching under this legislation and our work towards being an anti-racist school district. And the district should be providing appropriate, timely professional development for our teachers. They should be providing guidance and supports for teachers and staff. And I believe that all of these opportunities should be available during the contract time and be fully resourced as well. So, of course, we need to advocate that bills like this do not continue to be written and voted on at the State House, but under them, we can still teach in a way that is supportive of history, supportive of our student population, and supportive of our teachers.
Thank you, Kim. We'll now move to Maria, followed by Lloyd.
Thank you. I recently had a question by a gentleman about this, and he was deeply, I believe, frustrated and disappointed with my response. Because as a person of color, I can't turn my eyes away from the obvious. We have to acknowledge the deep-rooted racist practices in our country. And if we are one of the most, if not the most diverse districts in the state, we have to teach real history. And we have to acknowledge our students and their experiences. I would completely support teachers. And I believe that teachers that are now working for the district believe the same and expect the support from the board. if we are the model for urban education, we have to support them.
Thank you, Maria. We'll now move to Lloyd, followed by Jackie.
Well, I mean, if you take $300 from people and you have an economy that you brag about that only produces $10 an hour jobs, and you don't fully fund education, and you failed on the environment to give people good drinking water, then you would switch the conversation too. So I think that's what this is all about. But here's what I think we can do. I think all of us have made positive contributions. So yes, at the schoolhouse, we should fully teach history. What we have to be really careful about is that we don't create a power vacuum where people see each other in a zero-sum game dynamic. So I think the one place where people's minds are still malleable is the public school. We can have this. So my hope is that we build a language out of all of this that allows everyone to see each other's contributions, to see the hopes that all have, and to make sure that this is an egalitarian system that we really do see and feel, and everybody believes that they can achieve the most what they can with their God-given talent in this great country of ours. So that's what I feel about that, and that's what I'll be working towards.
Thank you, Lloyd. So Lloyd, thank you for finishing up on that question. As we prepare for final remarks, I do want to remind all those who are joining us on Facebook, we will have an opportunity to do breakout rooms with each individual candidate. I believe our president has dropped the link to the Zoom that if you would like to individually talk with the individual candidate, please join our Zoom link so you will be able to do so. But as we move into final remarks, we'll start we'll finish as we started, starting with Terry. Again, we'll give you 90 seconds apiece for closing remarks, and then we will transition into breakout rooms once those are completed. But Terry, please take it away.
Thanks, Cam. And again, I'd like to thank you, Victoria and Ebony, as well as the branch for hosting today's forum. We've covered a lot of ground today. We started with our individual priorities on education. We've talked about school calendar, academic disparities, SROs and restorative justice, recruitment, retention, and promotion of teachers of color, as well as House File 802. And I share all of that just to share that this job is hard. This job is complex. This job requires people who are willing to give the time and attention to the work at hand. Because really, this is not only about our education system, but it is about our babies. It is about educating the future and having a workforce and people who are equipped to meet the needs of our modern day economy. So I'm pleased to be able to run for District 4, but I'm also pleased to be able to show up in ways both big and small, not only for our district and for our students. And I hope that people have taken note of all that the candidates who are here tonight have to share. There is a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of passion, and a wealth of dedication to Des Moines Public Schools and all of the candidates who are here tonight. And I just hope that when we get to Election Day on November 2nd, everybody will show up and voice their vote and really support our education system. Too much is at stake not to. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Terry. We'll now move to Jenna, followed by Shelley.
Yes, thank you so much to the Des Moines branch of the NAACP for having this forum tonight and for inviting me to be a part of it. You know, I am a mom, a district parent, again, a fourth generation Des Moines Public School graduate, live right in the urban core of Des Moines, work in the urban core of Des Moines, and passionate about the possibilities and opportunities that lie within this district. And there are a lot of challenges. Terry, thank you for listing all of those because it is a lot. There is a lot at stake, but I think there's a great reward at the end if we can continue to work through it and work through it together. And that's really why I'm running, because I believe that we are at a tipping point. I believe it is an important point in Des Moines Public Schools history where we're going to take the challenges and turn them into great opportunities and into something better and really become that model for urban school district that we believe that we can be. And that's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about bringing together our parents, our community, and continuing to build on this wonderful work that is already happening. I am an open door. Again, I am running and I'm on the ballot November 2nd. Would appreciate and be so humbled to have your vote. Hope you do vote. And regardless of you know, now between now and then or anytime in the future, please feel free to reach out. I would love to hear ideas and be your voice for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. We'll now move to Shelley, followed by Kim.
Yeah, thanks for having me tonight, and thanks to everyone for attending. I'm looking forward to questions later. Look, I'm running for school board because we need leaders who listen. I know what it feels like to not be heard, and it's discouraging. We need leaders who will listen to parents, to community members, to stakeholders. We need leaders who will be transparent with decisions that they make and not make them before the board meeting starts. I believe we need leaders who will prioritize the safety of our children, because we can set a whole bunch of goals for our district, but if our kids aren't safe and our teachers and staff aren't safe in a school, they're not going to learn in a classroom. And finally, I bring real solutions to our literacy crisis. I've spent the better part of 2 years learning about the appropriate curriculum and listening to teachers and what they need. We need leaders who listen, who prioritize the safety of our students, teachers, and staff, and who are willing to make hard choices. I'm Shelley Skuster, and I appreciate your vote for District 1 on November 2nd.
Thank you, Shelley. We'll now move to Kim, followed by Maria.
Thank you for hosting, and thank you to everyone that is participating. I appreciate your engagement in the school board election process. I am Kim Martorano, and I would be humbled by your vote on November 2nd. Vote for me if you believe in a focus on improving student outcomes. Vote for me if you believe in my focus on equity and anti-racist systems. Vote for me if you believe in a collaborative approach to problem solving. My experience and skills are needed on this board. I am the right candidate to serve as your director, and I have proven that I am devoted to the students, the teachers, the staff, the parents, and the entire DMPS community. I'm here to listen and to reflect the vision and the values of the community and work collaboratively with my board colleagues to create a better future for our kids. Your support and vote are certainly appreciated. Thank you for voting on November 2nd.
Thank you, Kim. We'll now move to Maria, followed by Lloyd.
Thank you. As Ms. Terry said, this is hard work. There's a lot to be done. And, you know, for the last 25 years, I have been an advocate, a counselor. I have tried to be a resource in the community, and my job on the board would not be different. I would work to hopefully be a voice and represent communities who have not always been present at the table. I would work for having people, populations be present, because we all can make a difference, because what we do and what we say has an impact, and it has an impact on our kids. I think that not a lot of people want to do this work. You know, if you look at the at-large seats, we have 2, and we have 3 people running. Des Moines is how large? What's our population? And we have 3 people that are running for this. Why? Because people don't really want to step up. I'm willing to step up. I know how to listen because I've been doing it for 25 years, and I can advocate. I actually have a master's in counseling, so I'm a really good listener. And when I feel passionate, when I believe in what I'm doing, and when I believe in standing up to represent people that don't and haven't had a voice, I can excel at it. And I can guarantee you wouldn't be disappointed. I hope that you can vote November 2nd, and I hope to have your support.
Thank you, Maria. Now moving on to Lloyd.
Well, thank you everyone who has participated in this event tonight, and thank you to the NAACP. I would tell you up front that I hope that we keep this communication line open after the election and that we begin to communicate. If I'm elected, then I pledge to you that I will continuously come back and talk to you about the challenges and the opportunities before the school board. My friends, my mother was born in 1935, deep in the heart of Dixie in Mississippi. An education wasn't available to her, but she believed that an education was an opportunity for her children to have a better life. And she was right. Out of the 8 of her children, 5 went on to college and to get a degree, and I am the last of her children who got an MBA. I know what education can do. I know the opportunities it can provide, and I know that it can clear a path for both the people of today and generations of tomorrow. When you cast your vote on November the 2nd, I'm asking you to choose a candidate who understands what education can do and what it can be. My oldest brother was the first person in our town to go to college in a little small town in Mississippi. Nowadays, everybody's sending their kid to college. Why? Because everybody knows now that education empowers everyone. I want all of your children to experience all the fullness that this country has to offer, and I will get up every day to ensure that they have a school system that works for them so that they too can experience it themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lloyd. And last, we'll move to Jackie.
Thanks. It would be a high honor to be able to represent Des Moines on the public school, on the school board, excuse me. It is really high stakes work. And I think it's important that as candidates and as incumbents, that we say to everybody, it's high stakes work we're in, but we need the community to be into, because we need everybody to invest their time and energy in the support of our young people. You know, when I went back to school to get my teacher certification, one of the classes was the history of public education. And I'll always remember the role that Horace Mann in 1848 played in his discussion around public education as one of the founders of public education. He said, it is designed to be the great equalizer. And I think if we're all being honest, I'm not sure Des Moines Public Schools is nailing it yet. I don't believe that we would look at our education system and say it is working for everybody, regardless of their race, gender, socioeconomic status. And there's work to do. But that is why I get so excited, because you have to have a relentless focus on results and accountability. You have to show up and listen. And that is something that I love to do. I think I visited 32 schools. I had this great goal of visiting 50 by the election. And I've met with, 5 people from programs. So I'm getting there, but half the battle is just showing up and asking people to tell their story. I think the other things that I want to make sure to say is that I believe in the power of our community. And no disrespect to people who love skateboarding, but we have figured out how to put together the largest skateboard park in the world. And I believe that if we turn to our community and said, we have a crisis and we need you, and help us make our schools to be the envy of the state, they would help. So I would appreciate your support on election day. There are 2 seats and there are 3 candidates. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you, Jackie. And thank you to all of our candidates representing our at-large candidates, Maria Alonzo-Diaz, Lloyd, Elam, and Jackie Norris. Candidates for District 1, Shelley, Skuster, Kim Martorano, our District 2 candidate, Jenna Knox, and our District 4 incumbent, Terry Caldwell-Johnson. We truly appreciate each and every one of your time here today. I know personally, I heard a lot of passion, a lot of commitment, and a lot of dedication from each and every single one of you. And as Maria really spoke to, there's a lot of people out in this community that have opinions, but you 7 have stepped up and really stepped up to the plate. So on November 2nd is election day. We just want to remind everybody to get out there and vote for school board as well as city council. Just a reminder that we do have a city council forum on Tuesday, October 26th at 6:30 with a very similar format as today. Obviously, the vote is important to everybody, especially local votes. I'd be remiss if I didn't give another shout out to our president, Victoria Weber Henderson, our secretary, Ebony Woods, our Education Committee Chair, Mr. Alex Hanna, and our Political Action Committee Chair, John Olson, as well. It takes a lot behind the scenes for us to put this on. These individuals have shown their dedication and passion to the work of the NAACP and many more. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Victoria to kind of walk us through how we'll open up these breakout rooms. And again, just want to say thank you to everybody who participated tonight, especially our candidates, and even more so the residents that decided to show up via our webinar on Facebook or directly into the Zoom. As many of you said, we can't do anything without the community. The community starts with you all, and make sure you get out there on November 2nd to exercise your vote. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, thank you all, like Kim said, for joining us. I am going to turn on the breakout rooms. You all can go into the breakout room of your choice. If you have a specific question you want to ask your candidate, feel free to do so. If you want to leave that room and come back and go to a different room, that option will be available for you as well. Again, thank you for joining us and have a wonderful evening.